We got to attend the first ever Players Era college basketball tournament. Teams were paid a hefty sum just to attend.
That is why Players Era is groundbreaking. It's the first college basketball event like this to include NIL activities valued at $1 million per team. They're creating content for brands.
From the players' perspective, they don't know the legal nitty-gritty or care. They just know they're playing for money.
If there's something else on the line, you and I both know that you're going to play a little harder. The games were super competitive.
All the D1 schools, they're going to participate in revenue sharing from TV deals and have basically a $20 million salary cap. So the differentiator is going to be these third-party NIL deals. All right, I'm Sam Winter. I'm here with my brother from the same mother, Mitt Winter. He's a sports attorney and legal expert in college athletics and the NIL era. We got to attend in Las Vegas the first ever Players Era festival and college basketball tournament. This tournament was an invitational in which the teams who accepted an invite were paid a hefty sum just to attend, with first place taking extra money and second and third place having some cash prizes as well. Mitt was lucky enough to be involved in helping put the tournament together from the legal and business affairs side. So I thought this was a good place to start talking, NIL and the new era of college sports. What is so significant about the Players Era tournament?
First off, I'm going to have to correct you. The teams were not paid to attend or play in the event. They were paid for engaging in NIL activities that were happening during ancillary events that were on a different day than the games. So this was not pay for play. Just have to get that out of the way. A lot of people have described it that way, but the way college sports are set up now, the athletes are still not able to be, quote, paid to play. So they were, as part of the event, received NIL compensation, or their NIL collectives actually received the NIL compensation for the athletes providing marketing services for event sponsors like Starbucks, MGM, Everwonder, who is the entity that, actually put on the event. So just had to make that clear right there from the beginning.
It's an important distinction.
But that is why Players Era is unique and groundbreaking, because it's the first college basketball event like this to include NIL activities surrounding the event for all of the athletes to engage in. So it's the first time that's happened, and each team, the marketing services they provided were valued at $1 million per team. So each team's collective got that money for, facilitating and managing those NIL activities. So that's what really makes it unique. In addition, it was an awesome event. The games were all super competitive.
You could tell there was a little energy in the air from the players' perspective. I mean, there was a famous clip that circulated online of, I believe it was a player for Alabama, huddling his team up and saying, "Hey, you guys, you want to win $1 million?
Hey, y'all want $1 million? Let's
do it, yeah.
So they all knew they were playing for...
Which he was wrong. You can't win $1 million from winning the game. Teams that did well in the tournament, their marketability increased, so they were, based on that, given access to additional NIL opportunities, and it wasn't $1 million. So I don't know where he got that number from.
But it's funny because, from the players' perspective, they don't know the legal nitty-gritty or care. They just know they're playing for money, and I'm sure it puts a little bit of extra competitive juices into those games.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you heard the announcers like Candace Parker and Grant Hill and other people talking about how if, there's something on the line, in addition to all that comes along with winning a college basketball game, especially when you're playing other good teams. I mean, that's always hard to do and always exciting. But if there's something else on the line, especially in like an early season event like this, yeah, I think you and I both know that you're going to play a little harder.
There's a lot of these holiday tournaments, they're kind of, in terms of mind share of the college basketball fan, they're kind of competing against the Maui Invitational, not just for the they're not just competing for fan attention, they're competing for the teams themselves to like want to go and play in these tournaments. And these holiday tournaments can kind of be a snoozer. Like, I think you and I have both been there. You're not playing in a hostile environment. You're not playing in front of the home crowd. So those holiday tournaments can kind of be a little bit of a bummer for the players. So this definitely is a change up from that. One thing that I also think is interesting, like at a tournament like this, it is like kind of customary for players to do media and stuff. And like, obviously, everybody working the tournament, everybody with a camera in their hands, everybody, with a microphone in their hands, all these people are getting paid to be there except the players. And now, like, what's kind of revolutionary about it, I guess, is like the obligations of the players to make good TV, to do all the press. Like, that is ostensibly what they're getting paid for. Am I right?
They're creating content for brands. Like on Monday, every team had an hour slot where they have to go and film content for sponsors. Like, they created content for Starbucks. It's going to go out on Starbucks social media page, and some of the athletes are going to post that content as well. They did content for MGM and other sponsors as well. There were also some meet and greets they did. They participated in some golf events that fans and sponsors could go take part in. So stuff like that. But you're right. At these multi-team events, especially the ones around Thanksgiving or Christmas, there's always some other things that the athletes have to do. There's always, banquets and press things. Well, now in this era of college sports, athletes are allowed to be paid for engaging in that stuff and attending events like that. So just adds a whole new element to these events, and Players Era is the first one to really take advantage of that.
I can imagine that it will be something that draws people from all across the college basketball community, or like the media community, the brands who are interested in getting involved in college basketball. It seems like they're aiming to be a little more an event on that level.
Yeah, so the one who really came up with the idea was Seth Berger, who's the founder of And One shoe and apparel company. Everybody, or no, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people probably remember the And One tour. Seth has been involved in the basketball world for a long time, and he's now also a high school basketball coach, and also has some sons that are playing college basketball. And so I believe he was talking to one of his sons about, these MTEs and how they could like make them a little more exciting. And
Sorry, real quick, what's the MTE?
MTE, multi-team event.
Got it.
It's basically the NCAA lingo for these early season basketball tournaments.
Yep.
And so I know Seth and his son were talking, and I think something came up about NIL, and they're like, hey, what if there's an event, one of these MTEs that incorporated an NIL component? And I think that's where the idea originally came from. And then Seth knows Ian Orifice from way back when Ian, I think, was a teenager. And now Ian is the CEO of a new studio, Everwonder Studio, that's creating a lot of content, especially around sports. And so Seth reached out to Ian and said, hey, what do you think about this? Can we make this work? And that's kind of how it started. And Seth has lots of connections in the basketball world from And One and from coaching high schools, had lots of good players that have gone on to play in college. So he started reaching out to his network, talking to coaches, say, hey, would you be interested in an event like this? And, got some interest. I think Kelvin Sampson at Houston was the first one to say, yeah, we'll do this. And then just kind of snowballed from there, and it came together pretty quickly. There was, even like a week leading up to the event, I still heard people with some skepticism about whether it was actually going to happen and whether there was actually going to be NIL activities and whether that money that was going to be paid for the athletes engaging in the NIL activities was actually there and was going to actually be paid. All the coaches have talked very highly about it. The players have talked highly about it. College basketball media and commentators have all had great things to say about it. And I think it's just going to, continue to grow and get even better than it was his first year.
And especially because it's televised nationally on TNT. Like, as a television product, it's right on par with every other major basketball event you could imagine. And so, yeah, I think that's another interesting wrinkle, is making this all come together and making it real for the fans, making it real for the players. You're on national TV playing on TNT. You know, Grant Hill is doing the color commentating, you know, with live sports and sports in general just being like the hottest commodities in media. You know, live sports are the most valuable properties in all of media, essentially. You know, it's kind of known, if you follow the media world, that Warner Brothers and TNT are kind of hurting for cash, as are a lot of media companies. They lost the NBA because the rights are so exorbitant, the cost of them. So they're kind of filling their slate with these other, you know, sports, unrivaled women's basketball league, college basketball. So it was kind of a big deal that this landed on TNT. So I think that only like marks like good things for the future of Players Era.
Yeah, and a lot of people have commented on how that kind of lent like a NCAA tournament feel to it, just from like how high quality the broadcast was and the commentators and all of that. So I think that was really cool. Like you said, Grant Hill did some games, Candace Parker did some games, Allie LaForce was there. So it, you know, from that perspective and just from how it looked on TV, it did look like, you know, a big time college basketball environment, just like the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And it meant something when they won. Like, the championship game came down to the wire. Once the results were in, confetti coming down from the skies, you have a championship belt. Like, the players were hyped. So it was super fun. Do you think Oregon coach let the team hang out in Vegas that night, or did they get them on a plane and get them out of there so no one got in trouble?
I don't know. It's a good question. They had some days where they could have engaged in some Vegas activity, because let's see, they played Tuesday, Wednesday, no games Thursday, no games Friday. So who knows what went on Wednesday and Thursday.
There might have been some shenanigans. I remember I was in an AAU tournament in Vegas where a lot of, you know, high school basketball events are held. And one of our players, he got into some trouble on his downtime and had to get like bailed out of a sticky situation. So yeah, Vegas is a place where these players can get into trouble. So
I have a good story from an AAU tournament in Vegas too, but I can't speak about it publicly right now. But definitely did some fun stuff on some of the MTE events that we played in.
Yeah, what's next for Players Era tournament? They're gonna just go bigger and better next year?
Yeah, so plans are to continue to grow. Have on the men's side, trying to at least get 18 teams next year, maybe up to 24. So obviously that would add, you know, to the energy and just like the amount of basketball being played, you know, add some new venues.
So we got like a fun VIP experience, and we got kind of the all access pass. Being there and sitting next to the players bench and just being like surrounded by the game, it was a little bit nostalgic for me. I don't know, what was some of your takeaways?
No, I agree. I mean, it's such you know, we got to sit courtside, like, and then like you said, we sat not only courtside, but I don't know what they call those seats. We were sitting between the team and the scorer's table. But it's such a different perspective watching a game from there than it is like even in the lower bowl, like 20 rows up. And it does bring back like a lot of nostalgia. Number one, seeing like how hard the players are playing. Like, a lot of people watch these games, they don't necessarily always think the players are playing that hard, but man, when you're down there, they are playing hard. And then also that brought back some funny and good memories is just listening to the coaches.
The coaches.
During the game, they say the funniest stuff. I think a lot of times they don't even realize the stuff they're saying and how like involved they get in every single possession, like it's life or death if the other team scores. And I mean, it kind of is obviously not life or death, but man, like they live and die with every single trip down the court on offense and defense. And just sitting there, you get back involved in that world. And man, they just do say the funniest stuff to each other. And it was cool because even the coaches were like talking to us, like asking us questions.
Coaches are some of the most hilarious human beings on the planet. Like, I think part of it is because you are allowed to like yell at people. You are allowed to give like full on critical feedback with like no sugarcoating. And yeah, coaches are a special breed. They don't know how funny they really are. We have so many memories of our coach in college saying the most hilarious stuff, and it's still like we still laugh about it to this day.
Sports is like one of those things where you can say certain things and do certain things that would never fly in the real world or like in a real job. Like if your boss walks up to you and like cusses you out and you just kind of like let it slide off and go sit down on your bench and you just forget about it. But in a college basketball game, your coach is going to, voice his opinion strongly about things you're doing, and you just kind of like learn to deal with it.
I want to get his name right because there was one moment that was kind of funny. I'm just looking at the Oregon roster. Number 9, Keyshawn Bartholomew, who kind of lit it up in the final game. He drove to his right, kind of did like a running hook, like totally missed the rim off the backboard. And I'm just like saying to myself, I had a coach moment. I'm like, does he practice that shot? Because it was way off. And the coach, Tony Stubblefield, who's Dana Altman's assistant, he's like, no, he does not, to answer your question. He's probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Like, that's a coach pet peeve. If you do some wild shot that you haven't been drilling and practicing and you miss it by a mile, that's a pet peeve for sure. That was a funny moment.
Yeah, there were definitely lots of comments on some shots that guys took, sort of like just like some disbelief and like funny comments around that. So yeah, definitely enjoyable to hear that stuff again.
Yeah, and fun to see the players too. Like, again, like it doesn't always translate on TV, but the players really care. And yeah, college sports does like bring out the best in people. People who are just like role players in the game, but you can see how they're like the glue guy on the team because they're always getting their team pumped up and having a positive word. So yeah, super fun to get up close to that and kind of relive those moments. Also kind of reliving, it also reminded me of the men's AAU national basketball tournament in Topeka when we were ball boys, and we used to go into the VIP room and like make suicides on the Coke machine. It was kind of reminiscent of that.
Yeah, those were the days, man. Used to get out of school to go be the ball boy and get all the free soda and sandwich fixins.
Yeah, exactly.
It was amazing.
Yeah, so this was a VIP experience of another sort. But you ran into a former teammate, Jordan Wilkes, who's an NBA scout. So he was there checking out the talent, and he had some interesting things to say. Who do you think he was there in particular trying to get a look at?
I think he was there taking a look at, so we saw him at the Rutgers game. He was there to check out Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. There might have been some other guys he was looking at in some of the other games, but I think that's the main reason he came to see those two guys. Yeah,
so takeaways from me is like Ace Bailey's the real deal. He and Dylan Harper will probably play at the next level, but I think Ace Bailey's probably going to get looks to be like the number 1 pick in the draft. It's interesting that somebody of his talent is at Rutgers, but I guess like that's probably the NIL era for you. I'm sure they wrote him a nice check, or the collective did. And he's kind of showing out, but his comps to me are kind of like Paul George or Brandon Miller. He's like 6'9", super long, just like a really smooth scorer, good shooter, but also just good basketball IQ, and either a 3-and-D guy at the next level, or if he keeps developing his floor game and is really like aggressive offensively, could be like a Paul George type.
Yeah, he has really pretty jump shot, super long, really good athlete. I remember there was one play, I think it was the second half of the game. He like drove baseline, stops quick, reverse pivot, like a fadeaway jumper, nothing but net. And we're sitting there, Jordan's like, how do you guard that? And that's like an NBA scout saying that. So that's pretty high praise coming from an NBA scout for a college freshman.
Nice. Yeah. Any other takeaways from you? I guess last takeaway from me was like San Diego State looked good. They have two goods. Their backcourt's really good. Nick Boyd and Miles Bird, two lefties who can really fill it up. They were good. And they've been a team who's had deep runs in the tournament the past couple of years. They went to the championship game in 2023. To me, like San Diego State and Houston, who were there at the Players Era tournament, they're like kind of indicative of these schools who are not like blue blood schools, but they're like competing at the national level because I think they're kind of quicker to embrace the new reality than maybe some of these other schools. So yeah, San Diego State was really impressive.
No, I agree. There's another guy on San Diego State that I thought was really good. I think this is his last name. I was reading about him again today. Guath,
Yeah, Guath.
7-footer, really good athlete. Could play on the perimeter, tons of blocks. I think I read today he's like averaging like 4 something blocks over his last few games. But I don't know if he's a freshman or sophomore or what year he is, but I think he's going to be a really good player.
San Diego State's coach, we snuck into our seats in the middle of a game during halftime, and he kind of like stood there like he wanted to remind us that it was his territory. He looked like, "What are you guys doing here?" But I don't know. It's kind of more of an NBA atmosphere. It was cool to see Vegas as a sports destination. Like Vegas is definitely like embracing sports more and more. You know, they have the Las Vegas Aces, WNBA team. The Raiders moved there recently, obviously. I don't know. Are they vying for any other pro sports teams? I
think they're on the very short list for expansion. If and when the NBA does expand, I think Vegas is like one of the spots that's going to get a team. Like Vegas and Seattle, I think, are the top 2. So I bet they'll have an NBA team pretty soon. But yeah, you're right. When we were there, another event that had just happened was the F1 event. They still had all that stuff set up for that. But yeah, Vegas is becoming like the sports capital of definitely, I'd say, the United States. I don't know if you could say the world, but it just has like the infrastructure, millions of hotel rooms, probably tons of arenas, basically everything you need to have all these big sporting events. And it also has all the side stuff to keep the fans interested when the games aren't going on too.
So talk about what the future of this new era of college sports looks like with respect to like what these new institutions that are going to last into this next era, what they're going to look like.
Traditionally, when college basketball teams go play in one of these multi-team events, it costs them a lot of money, especially if you're talking like going to Hawaii. You know, it can cost the team like $400,000, $500K in expenses, so they're losing money by playing in these events. The way the Players Era is set up, not only are they not losing money, the players are also receiving NIL compensation for doing things surrounding the games. And so if you have your choice between playing in Players Era, where you have that financial calculation, versus going playing somewhere else where, number one, your team or school athletics program is losing money and your players are not receiving any NIL compensation. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like, especially coming up in the future, schools are going to be able to pay NIL compensation directly to their athletes. So that new differentiator is going to be what kind of third-party NIL compensation can we provide and help find for our athletes? Because when the schools are going to be able to directly pay, there's going to be what's essentially a salary cap. So that next level of competition is going to be third-party NIL compensation. If you can play in events that are providing that for your athletes, that's, like I said, a no-brainer.
Yeah, the new reality, is going to kind of settle into place as soon as the House versus NCAA court case gets settled. And, ostensibly that puts into place a revenue sharing model where, correct me on the details, but, power schools or all the D1 schools are going to have, they're going to participate in revenue sharing from TV deals and have basically a $20 million salary cap. So everybody's going to have money to play with. So the differentiator is going to be these third-party NIL deals.
Yeah, any Division I school is going to be able to opt in to the House settlement terms. This all assumes that it gets final approval from the judge this coming year. But assuming it does get final approval, yeah, there will be a cap of roughly $20.5 million that a school can pay to all of its athletes. And that's not just the basketball team or the football team. That's all of its teams combined. So if every school is playing with that same cap of money that it can directly pay to its athletes, there's still going to be competition in recruiting. So how do you differentiate yourself? You can differentiate yourself by saying, all right, you come here we're going to pay you X directly under our revenue sharing system. But you're also going to have all of these third-party NIL opportunities that will equal Y. So combine X and Y, that's how much NIL compensation you're going to be able to make if you come here. And then at another school, it doesn't have the Y component of the NIL compensation. It could be a pretty big differentiator in recruiting.
Yep, definitely the new era is upon us. It is the players' era, and we got to experience it firsthand for ourselves. I think that's about it for us. You got anything to add before we head out? I think we'll keep this conversation going in the future. There's a lot more to discuss and explore in NIL and the new era of business, college sports business. So it's good catching up with you in Vegas, and we got to do it again next year.
Most definitely, and like we've talked about, it's going to be even bigger, and I'm sure there's going to be other events that Players Era puts on as well, not just this November event. So keep an eye out for all that.
We'll stay tuned. All right, for sure. Well, good seeing you. Take it easy, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Talk to you later.